Hey, Tyler, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, big fan, long time listener, first time caller kind of thing. So appreciate you having me on. Uh, yeah, my background, I'm going on, man, age myself here, but going on about 2 decades now in sales. Background started like many people, just kind of luckily fell into it. Came out to live in Arizona. I came out here to do graduate work for a master's program and needed some money while I was waiting for school to start. And I got an opportunity to do mortgages at the time. So got into that, got my first commission check, and I remember calling my mom saying, "Yeah, I don't think I need to go to school." and,
Yeah.
and luckily, I have parents that are very supportive. So I spent about a decade in mortgages. That was most of it. They had my own brokerage, even worked for some, Fortune 100 companies. Did so it was all B2C type stuff, and then moved over into, I guess, SaaS kind of MarTech after that. Very risky, very scary move, big hit to income, totally different environment, like everything. But I just wanted to see what that looked like. And so went and I worked for a company called ZocDoc, phenomenal organization, built up a territory there. Then went to work for a company called Outbound Engine, where I got to work with an individual called Scott Leese, who I'm sure you're familiar with, does a lot of stuff. So and now I'm with a company called Lead Forensics. So really from B2C to B2B to C, and now I'm full fledged B2B. So I've kind of ran the gamut in terms of who you sell to, but that's basically my long history, very very short.
And what was it like getting into B2B from B2C, which, I mean, because the sale is so different, a lot of people can't adjust to that.
I was one of them. I could not adjust
You
to
can adjust
it.
to
it
it.
it was. I tell my reps that work for me. I tell them my story a lot because when I moved from and I came from, was very successful in B2C, very successful. A lot of happy clients, just President's Club, like big paychecks, all that. My first 90 days in B2B, my manager at the time pulled me aside after hours and was like, "Look, they want me to fire you." I mean, that was the conversation I was having. You're
That's good
not ramping.
coaching.
Yeah. Like you're not ramping up the way they want you to, blah blah. But the good coaching was, he's like, "I do believe in you." He's like, so he's like, "We're gonna go another 30 days. Here's, we set out a plan, this and that." And I just buckled down. And it started coming together, but like it was rough. Like it was a very different process. There was more of a process. In B2C, there is no process. In B2B, there's absolutely a process. So it's not that I was fighting it; it's just learning it. Was a big adjustment for me, and that was on small transactional B2B. Here I am, many moons later, doing larger transactions, even longer. But yeah, people making that move, like it's you're gonna fall off the bike. You will.
Well, because we really don't see any role models in B2B sales, because it's boring. You can't make a movie out of a B2B
Yeah.
sale, right? It's not dramatic enough.
Oh yeah. No, yeah. If Will Smith were to play that character, right,
Who No one would watch it.
it wouldn't be a Pursuit of Happiness. It'd be yes,
Pursuit of a
watch it.
nap, right?
Yeah. Watch a 6 month sales cycle.
Yeah. And what were you doing wrong? Were you trying to move too fast? Were you giving up too soon?
I think I was two things. That's a good question. Two things. I think I was still very transactional.
Yeah.
So while I believe in relationship 100%, I think I was relying too much on relationship and then just good old fashioned asking for the business. Um, and then, I think the number two thing, which I think a lot of people struggle with just in general, one of my core beliefs is I was overestimating my ability, underestimating, the work it was going to take. So I think I just, my, ego of past success was, the more I wanted it, the more I really wanted it, the more desperate I was on calls, the less true to my own nature I had become. So yeah, I think, that was probably the bigger component. I was being too transactional, and then just, after 30, 60 days, not having success, because transactional 30, 60 days, the writing's on the wall. Like 30, 60 days in,
The
you
market
got a
tells
pretty
you.
good,
Yeah.
yeah, you got a pretty good idea. But in B2B, it's kind of hard to know 30, 60 days in because you're building that pipeline, building up the foundation. It definitely is different there.
And was it that they didn't either give you training or explain it, or did you feel that your success in one market was completely transferable to another market?
No, I think the training was there. Yeah, I think it was just my own expectations. Like I said, I just it was 100%. I expected to make a move. I expected to see it right away. It was, and people again. I think now that journey is a lot different. I think nowadays people come in and they do the SDR and then they build their way up, this, that, and the other. So I think the expectation's a lot more realistic. Back then, when I say back then, this was 2014, so like go back way back in the day. I think people were coming out of like the auto industry, the insurance industry, the mortgage industry, these B2C industries. That's where they were pulling their talent for B2B. And back then it was like I remember working with guys that were in insurance and collection and all that. And they were just coming in so hungry and their expectations were just what they would make that month one, what they would make that month two, completely misaligned with the fact that these customers, like, they were 2 months away from even bringing this up in a board meeting.
And something that I kind of learned this year was that reps are in their own way.
Yes.
And because I do a lot of surveys on LinkedIn and
Yeah.
stuff, and it's always, are you on time? Like 95% always say they're on time. It's like I deal with enough reps to know it's not 95%. Are you the best salesperson you know? 35% said they were the best salesperson they know.
That's insane. Yeah, that's interesting.
But the danger here, the good part is you got confidence. Clearly, you
Yes.
had that when you made that transition,
Yeah.
but that got in your way. That did not
Oh
help
yeah.
you.
Yeah, and any good teacher will tell you you have to have that healthy dose of humility within there, right?
Yes.
And that's even grit. Like if you watch the films about grit, grit isn't like, oh, I'll just keep banging it out until I get it. It's like, no, it's understanding that I can improve and that if I work hard and learn from my lessons, I can get better. And so yeah, you have to have the what I would call almost more optimism than confidence. Like optimism that I will get there,
Yes.
right? Like optimism that I will get the goal that I'm seeking, that I will get the outcome, but the humility to want to strive to get better along the way. That's very interesting. That 35% of people would say like, "Yeah, I'm the best salesperson I know." I would argue that that old adage of the some of the five people you hang out with. You need to change the people you're hanging out with if
Well,
that's the case.
if you're the best and you're making 150, you got to find another five people.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Time to
And
reassess your network. Yeah.
and it is that humility because before that leader came to you, you probably thought it had to be the product, had to be the territory.
Yeah. No, again, like, and I do think that's a difference between what will eventually be a top salesperson and your average, right? Is that, outward, like, locus of control, right? Versus inward, where
Yeah.
I never felt that. I never felt, and I remember this was a territory based role at the time. Guys were complaining about their territory, saying this and that. But meanwhile, I look around and I would see somebody hitting the numbers. And as long as there's one person doing it, then I should be able to do it, right? The classic Roger Bannister, right? Nobody ran the four
Yes.
minute mile. He ran the 4 minute mile. Well, so I've actually never succumbed to and I know that's a popular mindset around a lot of salespeople of like, oh, well, the product, the territory, all of these reasons. And I've worked for companies with not the best comp plans, territory based, and I've made really good money. Like, and I mean, if and I just believe again back to that humility, back to that ownership of take what you can learn there, be the best you can, optimize that, and then go. And again, you see that I know it's popular. People like to move jobs. So one lesson I wish I would have done differently is probably change jobs a little bit more frequently early on. But I think it's a healthy balance of optimizing where you currently are and not overstaying your welcome. And so but I've never thought product, territory, anything like that. I thought it's me. It's got to be me. What other answer is there? It's only me and the customer on the phone. So what other variable is there?
Right. And if you have, a reasonable sized territory and other people are doing it, then
Yeah,
it's possible.
yeah. Even if it's hard, right? Even if it's hard, it's still possible. And and you build that character, like by overcoming that obstacle. That'll give you character that you take with you the rest of your sales career.
And what was the motivation to get into leadership? Because I take it you're a people manager today.
I am now. Yeah. The easiest way to put it is I didn't get the joy of my own sales anymore. I remember it was like, this is going to be, it's a bit arrogant when I tell people this, I have to sign, like the sale itself for me wasn't that it was easy, but it wasn't the thrill, it wasn't the challenge it once was, right? But I remember people around me when they would close deals, they'd come in, they were new, we'd talk a little bit, I'd kind of mentor them, give them some advice, and they'd get that deal. And that rush I got reminded me of the rushes I used to get when I closed sales. And so that's kind of what led me into leadership was like, I, I look, the money is way better as a salesperson. Anybody that tells you differently is lying. Like the money was better, but the fulfillment and the purpose, I just, it's so much more rewarding helping other people accomplish their goals, at a certain point, right? Which inevitably gets me my goals, right? The old Zig Ziglar, right? But yeah. So there's a symbiotic relationship there.
And what have you learned along the way about what makes a great salesperson? Because when you're a leader, you get a very different vantage point. As you think at first, everyone should be like me.
Yes. Uh, let's all thank God that they're not
Pretty
all like me for
dangerous.
a second. Yes. There's this, let's say it definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think the top people, anybody that kind of knows me, knows my coaching at all, they know biggest thing for me is just charm and charisma, right? I think number one, it's just that old reminder. It's not the sales business, it's the people business. So that to me is like, how do people respond to you in general? If people leave your interaction thinking like, yeah, like I enjoyed that person, like that right there is the best foundation. And I think that can be challenging for people to learn later in their life. Not saying they can't. I mean, all skill sets can be learned. That's a hard one. If you didn't kind of grow up, I remember just growing up in that environment where, between my family, you go into a grocery store, you say hello to people, have conversations, you ask about their day. People don't have that kind of interaction as much today as they did, 15, 20 years ago. And I think that's tough. But so I think charm, charisma, that's my number one. I mean, confidence, optimism, like I talked about. And then I think an underplayed one is IQ, right? I think, when I say IQ, I don't mean like, oh, how far did you go in school, this and that. I just mean your ability to solve problems, to like take an idea, understand it, like think about it, and then explain complex ideas to people. Because in B2B world, you have to talk about, especially in B2B, you have to speak at like a sophisticated level. You sometimes have to introduce concepts to people that they're not familiar with. And can you do that in an explain it like I'm 5, 10 second, oh, I got it kind of thing. And that, so like those things to me, the charm, optimism, and I just think that certain level of intelligence has to be there. And if it's not, and again, the intelligence is the easiest one because you can study, learn, right? Like if, I couldn't explain to somebody how a black hole works, but like a physicist could explain that in 5 seconds in a way both you or I, you're probably a little sharper than I am even, like could understand.
It's a
And I think,
facade.
and in the sales world, it's the same thing. You have to be able to explain your product like
Yes.
that. Otherwise, you're in danger of over talking, over explaining, overselling, which we all know is one of the worst things.
Yeah, because we don't really talk about that much.
Yeah.
Because when you go for training and enablement, they put the marketing person up there with all the buzzwords and how the company views the
Yes.
product and the problem, not how the customer views it.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. And you're going to talk to customers, and you have to be able to adopt your adapt your pitch and the words and the vocabulary used to the market constantly. So That's absolutely agree.
Yeah, because one of my successes was going the third round of salespeople, and it took me forever to understand what the product did.
Yeah.
They had this, Russian CEO who went to MIT, had 75 slides, and I go, 3 rounds of salespeople, and it's still a hot company. But
Well, it's like when I've done a bit of consulting, and I remember like you meet with some founders on writing their structures, and they're trying to explain their value proposition, and there's nothing harder to understand than a founder trying to tell you what problem their product solves.
right, yeah, and it's like with like Rivian. Oh, we're in uh the transportation. Well, yeah, your truck.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, or we're in climate change. Your electric truck.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's great to get the stock price up, but I don't think anyone's going to buy it for that
Yeah, it's on a
reason.
cold call. That's a hard thing to translate.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're like, it's a truck, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But if you're able to do that, you get it out of the commodity category, because the trap when you try and explain something is trying to explain it like something else.
Yeah.
But if you do that, they go, I got that.
Well,
Probably in your
that's
space, right? I got something like that, but not this.
yes, exactly. And that's where, I mean, well, again, it's still like in when the correct messaging, like you said, you expand your audience, you move it beyond the logical to the emotional even. So yeah, that wording, and again, how quickly can you do it? It reminds me of the famous Simon Sinek of 10,000 songs in your pocket, right? The why with the iPod and all of that. Yeah, I mean, absolutely correct, and that's the job of the salesperson, is to nail that on every single call. And that's hard thing. It is a really hard thing to do, especially call after call when your target is moving because your audience is changing. Their needs are, changing. Everybody's unique. Again, right? You're in the people business, not the sales business. So marketing's job, here's a message that'll get people thinking, but sales is to then translate that on a call to you, Brian, my prospect, your day to day.
Right. Because I'm sure you guys do a lot of cold outbound, which is very
Yes.
different than warm inbound.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Especially when, we talk about some of the changes too, like through my career is with mortgages, right? When I sold mortgages, people know what a mortgage is. They're, even if you're
Right.
even on a cold call, if I say, hey, what's your current interest rate? What if I could lower your rate? It's a very easy.
Yes.
One of the things that smacks me in the face is you're calling somebody who's not expecting your call, right? Telling them about a problem they didn't
Not
even know
care
about this
about.
problem. Yeah, they'd be like, fine, I never even thought about that. And then you're telling them a solution to the problem they didn't know about from a company they've never heard of. Like it is just it's one of it's fun. Like that was the thing that really revived my love of sales as well, was like that's such a challenge to just call somebody out of the blue and then accomplish that in a 3-minute window. You know what I mean? To where, because you basically have just a minute or two to where they're like, all right, well, let me ask you this. And now they're engaging in conversation. And that was a big challenge. And when you're able to do that on a cold outreach, take somebody from, we have, my CEO always talks about, I love it. You're talking to people who, have one eye, and you're trying to explain to them what it's like to have two eyes, and they just like, what, I don't understand the difference, like, right? And
Right.
so
I can
it's
see.
such a challenge. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like I can see now. Yeah, yeah, but depth perception, I don't get it.
And that is a talent. That is a
Yes,
very advanced sales talent.
it is. Yeah, it's one that takes, I think, a long time, to absolutely master. And you really do have to. That's where resilience comes in, because on that cold call, man, that's brutal. But I see guys. It's funny. I see guys now that have done doing it for years. They jump on a call and they're so proficient at it. It's like watching, just an artist at work. It's like that's. I mean, that's impressive. Those people that can truly do it. And if you can't do it just yet, you'll get better. You absolutely
Well,
will.
it kind of requires empathy, because you kind of have to understand what it's like to look through the world with one eye.
Yeah, yeah. Which
Because if
that's
you've
really
had
hard for a
two
lot of
eyes your
people.
whole life, you
Yeah,
don't know what it's like.
yeah, and that is truly hard for some people to step back and just say, well, okay, wait a minute, what would that feel like? What would that look like? What does that? Yeah, yeah. What's that person going through? Yeah.
Because the charm and the personality may get you in the door, and they may enjoy talking to you,
Yes.
but until but you got to keep bringing something.
Well, and that's where I think what you're saying there's like getting out of your own way comes in is where a lot of salespeople, right? They get in, they're so it's the pitch, it's the pitch, it's the pitch, it's the value statements, this and that. And especially in today's environment, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, that economy is doing better. People are, especially in my space with Martech and this and that, like people are investing. So you just got to get out of your own way. Talk to them real quick, find out what their problem is, see if there's that mutual kind of fit there. You're going to educate them on a few things. They're going to educate you on a few things, right? And if it seems like a good fit, then just go with it. And people are pretty willing to take a risk a lot of times, right? In the Martech, I think it's different if they're doing a wholesale change to like a CRM or payrolling system. That's going to be a different. But a lot of times it's like, look, just keep it basic, get out of your way. If once you see the value or show the customer the value and they say, yeah, I like it, just keep the ball moving forward. And a
Yeah.
lot of times they're like, okay, well, we haven't talked about this yet. You don't need to. The customer doesn't care about the cup holders. They want to know the gas mileage. So focus on that.
Yeah. And when you're interviewing reps,
Mhm.
what what advanced skill have you looked for, or have you been? Because I'm sure you've made a bad hire. We all have,
Oh
right?
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
super expensive, heartbreaking for everybody. And let's face it, we hired them. It's our
Yeah.
fault.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, 100% of the time. Yes. 100%. I still, I mean, like that's probably one of the toughest things is like when we hire somebody, like I go through and we make that call and we bring them on and you start getting the sense and they get a sense too. I mean, right. When you hire the right people, they also start noticing it too. Like maybe this isn't the best. And like, that's just one of the toughest things, but the advanced skill, I think, for me, more than anything, when I'm speaking to somebody new is I do look for where they want to go with their career. So it may not be because there's a normal sales skills, right? And I do a role play with people. I don't know how many people out there doing that, but do a role play. If you're hiring for a sales job, I don't care what the role play is, do some form where you can feel it. Um, and then besides that, like I want somebody that's geared towards growth because if they're just and I've got really good friends that are just, hey, I want to make my money, I like where I am, I don't want to rock this boat, I'm just looking for the next great comp plan. And that's great. I mean, I love that for those guys.
But what does growth mean to you?
So growth means to me is that like they're actively investing in their own personal development, like actively. Like you better be able to tell me what book you're reading, you better be able to tell me what you're learning from that book, right? Number two is you better have some sense of like where if you are an SDR now, right? Are you going to leadership? Are you going towards like to me it's you have to have a plan of where you want your future to go. It doesn't have to be a detailed plan. I mean, if you're an SDR, it's probably not that detailed. If I'm hiring into leadership, yeah, it's probably going to be very detailed, But that to me is what that like I categorically don't want to hire anybody that is only here to work the job they're in right now
Yeah.
because that's too big of a risk. You talk about cost, and that's why I thought of it answering it that way is because the most expensive is when I get somebody top rep, and a year later, somebody out there has a better comp plan than me. Somebody's going to offer them better base than me. It doesn't matter how well I take care of my employees. Somebody out there just is. That's just how the market is, and God love them for going to make more money. I have no hard feelings, but I want them to stay here. So
Right. Because if there isn't the growth, they're almost already in the B player trap where they're like,
true. That's
oh,
true.
80 to 105% of quota. I'm happy. Long
True.
Christmas vacation.
Yeah. No, I'm making this much commission. I'm gonna take this time off. I'm gonna, like, okay.
But that's kind of marketing. That's not sales, right? Because sales, I think growth is the new money motivator, right? Because
Yes.
if you're that good, someone's always going to pay you.
Yes. I agree 100%. And that's why I say, like, if you're just here for that commission check, and not to say that I don't take care of my employees, but I just know that eventually you're going to get the grass is green. But if you're here, I will get you promoted up. I will get you to the next level. Like that's one of my prides. And I want you here because it's so much cheaper to keep somebody than hire somebody new. So I want you to have those long term, aspirations, just like I'm going to have.
Right. Because certainly in sales, if you don't have that growth, what ends up happening? You're not staying still.
Yeah,
You tend to slip backwards.
as I say, you'll burn out, and then you get back to what you're saying earlier about like, oh, the product, oh, the territory, right? And that's when that negative mindset starts creeping in, vicious cycle,
Right.
and you're
Because
off
I
to the
was
next
top
role.
guy last year. It
Yeah,
can't be me.
yeah, couldn't be, no way. I mean, I haven't read anything, I haven't kept up, I haven't gone to seminars, I haven't done anything, but I haven't changed.
And like you mentioned locus of control, that is kind of come very consistent when I talk to sales leaders. And I look for that all the time because if that isn't there, you get a
Yes,
victim, and the
yes.
victim will never get what the cause is.
No, and they'll never, if they can't admit the problem, right? It's like the old addiction model, right? If you can't even admit what the problem is, you're never going to
Gonna
address
fix
it.
it. Yeah, cool. And what skill do you wish you had more of? If there was a supplement that you could get and take every day that would get you to where you'd like to be, some characteristic or skill.
Um, honestly, one of the things that two things I absolutely struggle with, right? So one of the things that I truly, truly struggle with is some of the supervisor aspects. And it sounds weird, like,
No, it
but
doesn't. It sounds very
I like
common.
I coach people, but like some of those just supervisor, I really do need to get better at. I see the data, but like I don't know. I think that's something that I could definitely improve on is how I'm communicating to my reps on those day to day kind of job duties. I definitely struggle with that because I look too big pictures. Number one.
Well, the thing that bugged me about certainly going into sales leadership was it's hard to go back,
Yes.
both because um, people don't want to hire a manager to go back to being a rep because they're like, well, why didn't he want to be
Yeah.
a
Why are you
manager?
stepping backwards? Yeah. Yeah.
But then you have the trap of there's only so many management jobs.
Yeah.
So you either go up or you go out. And then it's like going up takes away a lot of that coaching, mentoring fun and
Oh yeah.
turns into more internal battles of quotas and comp plans and admin. And,
Yeah.
you know, the CEO thinks it's this and it's really that. And it's going to convince them.
Yeah, it's more looking at spreadsheets and what does this number mean and how do we make this graph do this instead of this? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And, we need 15 more enablement meetings. And I go, nah, we really don't. We're
Yeah, I
okay.
think we could do with less. I think we could do that
Yes,
in an
let's
email. Yeah.
enable meetings on a Wednesday at 10 a.m.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, and I just and I think the other, is one thing in my life right now is I'm I'm finding a hard time. So I actually just got a new kind of mentor coach of my own. So what I'm trying to work on is where is my next skill set. So I've my sales stuff. I've read all these books. I've done all this stuff. Leadership, same thing. But I always want to stay at the forefront of kind of what's coming out, this, that, and the other. So I think, to your question, I've actually haven't identified that yet. So I just brought on a new coach for myself that I'm working with right now to start identifying my next areas of opportunities and what skill sets I should be building on. Because, just like everybody is, you do my self assessments and I do pretty good. Right. So,
I'm the best I know.
yeah. So, no, so I actually I always have a coach. I always have somebody that I work with that kind of gives me that insight. So that's currently a work in progress, to be blunt about it. Yeah.
Cool. Hey, I really appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
Yeah, 100% on LinkedIn. I am working with somebody right now on starting more kind of blog kind of content thing. We haven't launched just yet, but stay tuned on that. So if you want to go on LinkedIn, start following me, message me. One thing I will say, if you message me any sales advice, whatever, I will always get back to you. And then early next year, hoping to start releasing some content. And Brian, really appreciate you having me on.